The moment Michael realized who was sitting beside him, his breath caught in his chest like he had walked into a memory he never meant to revisit. The soft glow of the restaurant lights reflected off the polished wood tables, the quiet clinking of glasses filling the air, and there she was, calmly folding her napkin as if fate had not just played a cruel joke. It was his ex's mother, sitting at the same table, on what was supposed to be a simple first date, and in that instant, years of buried emotions rose like a sudden storm. He had come hoping for a fresh start, unaware that the past was about to pull up a chair and test everything he thought he had healed from. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that God sometimes brings people together for reasons we don't immediately understand, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel for more real, heartfelt stories like this one. Michael had spent most of his 30s rebuilding a life that once revolved around someone else. After his breakup with Rachel, a relationship that lasted nearly 7 years, he had walked away with more than a broken heart. He carried guilt, unanswered questions, and the quiet shame of knowing that love alone had not been enough to save them. Rachel had wanted stability, a future planned down to the smallest detail, while Michael had been stuck chasing career dreams that never seemed to land. When they finally parted, it was peaceful on the surface but devastating underneath, the kind of ending that leaves scars because no one was truly wrong, just misaligned. For a long time, Michael avoided anything that reminded him of that chapter. He moved apartments, changed routines, and stopped visiting the small downtown spots where Rachel and her family used to gather. Her mother, Margaret, had always been kind to him, the sort of woman who believed in handwritten thank you notes, Sunday church, and checking in on people even when life got busy. Losing Rachel had also meant losing that gentle presence, and although he never admitted it aloud, that loss stung more than he expected. Years passed, and life slowly softened. Michael found steadier work in Chicago, settled into a quieter rhythm, and learned how to be alone without feeling empty. When he finally agreed to go on a date again, it felt less like excitement and more like cautious hope. Sarah, the woman he was meeting, had been introduced through a mutual friend from church. She was warm, thoughtful, and had that calm confidence that came from knowing who she was. Michael walked into the restaurant believing he was ready to open a new door, not realizing that God sometimes opens doors that lead you through unfinished rooms first. As the evening unfolded, the shock gave way to something deeper. Margaret was not there to cause discomfort or stir old wounds. She too looked surprised, then composed, carrying herself with the grace Michael remembered so well. Sarah had invited her along after learning Margaret was visiting the city alone and didn't want her to spend the evening by herself. What could have been unbearably awkward slowly turned into a quiet, reflective experience. Michael found himself observing Margaret differently now, not as his ex's mother, but as a woman who had also weathered loss, change, and disappointment. Throughout the meal, memories surfaced uninvited. Michael remembered holidays spent around Margaret's table, her prayers before meals, and the way she always believed people could grow beyond their worst moments. He also remembered the night Rachel cried in the kitchen, telling him she felt invisible, and how Margaret later tried to gently guide him without choosing sides. Sitting there, Michael felt the weight of regret press against his chest, not sharp, but heavy and honest. As the conversation moved naturally, Michael realized something unsettling and freeing at the same time. Margaret did not look at him with resentment or judgment. There was no unspoken blame in her eyes, only a quiet understanding that life rarely follows the plans we make. She spoke about faith, about trusting God when answers don't come quickly, and about learning to release bitterness because it poisons the soul more than the memory ever could. Michael felt exposed in the best way, as if someone had finally seen the parts of him he had spent years trying to hide from himself. By the time dessert arrived, the tension Michael feared never fully materialized. Instead, there was an unexpected sense of peace. Sarah listened attentively, unaware of every detail of the shared past but fully present in the moment. Michael began to see how different this chapter could be, not because the past was erased, but because it was finally being understood. He realized that healing did not mean forgetting Rachel or pretending that chapter never existed. Healing meant learning from it, honoring it, and allowing it to shape him into someone better. Later that evening, as they stepped outside into the cool night air, Michael felt lighter than he had in years, not because everything was resolved, but because something important had shifted inside him. He had spent so long believing that closure had to come from Rachel, from a conversation that never happened, or an apology that never came. Instead, closure arrived quietly, through compassion, humility, and a reminder that God's timing is rarely comfortable but always purposeful. Margaret's presence that night became a mirror, reflecting the man Michael had been and the man he was becoming. He recognized his past mistakes without drowning in them, and acknowledged his growth without arrogance. For the first time, he felt genuinely open to loving again, not desperately, but faithfully. Sarah noticed the change too, the way Michael's guarded edges softened as the night went on, replaced by sincerity and gratitude. As days passed, Michael carried that evening with him like a quiet blessing. It reshaped how he viewed forgiveness, not as something owed, but as something freely given for the sake of peace. He began to pray differently, asking less for control and more for guidance. He also reached out to people he had unintentionally pushed away, understanding now that isolation was never the answer. If this story is touching something deep inside you, if it's reminding you of someone you need to forgive or a chapter you need to make peace with, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss stories that speak to the heart. Just before this story ends, I want to ask you something special. Please comment below with the word grace if you believe that God can turn even the most uncomfortable moments into healing ones. Michael never expected that sitting beside his ex's mother on a date would become one of the most transformative experiences of his life. What began as shock became reflection, and what felt like a cruel coincidence revealed itself as divine alignment. Sometimes God doesn't remove the past from our path. Sometimes He sits it right next to us, not to hurt us, but to heal us, reminding us that grace often arrives in the most unexpected seats at the table.